I'm Alex with Storyline Travel. One of the reasons that I created this channel was to share a lot of tips and tricks for traveling. We focus on Disney World, Universal, and cruising a lot. But one of the other reasons I created this channel was to share with you mistakes I've made or I've seen other people make. And today we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about 5 airport fails that I've experienced personally and share with you how to not fail when headed to the airport. Stay with us. We're glad you're here. So I think it's important to learn from other people's mistakes, and today you're going to get to learn 5 lessons, 5 fails that I've made when going to the airport. Number 1, arriving to the airport to find out that your flight's canceled. That's happened to me. Driving, an hour or so from my home to the airport, parking at the parking lot and taking the shuttle in, and then going to, check in or screen through, security to find out that my flight's been canceled. A lot of times flight cancellations can be staff shortages, or they can be, inclement weather. And just so you know, the weather could be, at the airport you're leaving. It could be at the destination airport. But there's actually times when weather, in transit creates a situation where flights have to be canceled. No matter what the reason is, once you get to the airport, you only have 2 options at that point if your flight's canceled. One is to try to rebook, and the other is to go home. If you check your flight information before you get in the car to go, you may be able to save yourself quite a bit of driving, going across town, getting to the airport, only to find out you're going to have to go home. So before you get in the car, before you leave, check your flight status. See, is it delayed, is it canceled, or is it on time? It's no guarantee, but if it is canceled at that point, now at least from home, you have the opportunity to contact the airline, find out what your alternatives are, maybe get rebooked. Now, a note of caution on delays. I have seen delays where it could be 3 or 4 hours, and then that time gets pulled back. They were able to resolve the issue and get you closer to your flight time. So with delays, I'm a little more cautious. If it's a few hour delay, I'm going to go ahead and head to the airport and just kind of keep an eye on what's going on with that. But as far as flight cancellations, definitely check before you leave home. Avoid that fail. Fail number 2, security fails. And it's really 2 parts on this fail. One is not having the proper identification. The first is you're flying international and you need a passport. You get to the airport and realize you don't have it. Most of the airline check-in desk will not even issue you a boarding pass if you don't have your passport with you. Definitely once you get to the gate, if you make it through security, that's going to be an issue. The other thing with passports to be aware of is that your passport needs to be valid for 6 months from your travel date. And our recommendation is 6 months from the time you get home, that expected time to get home. You need to be aware of the expiration date and make sure you have your passport with you for those international flights. For domestic flights, starting in 2023, you're going to have a little star on your state issued ID or driver's license known as Real ID. And the TSA is going to require that. So for me, the fail was forgetting my passport and having to go back home and get it. Fortunately, I allowed enough time for that to happen. I made my flight, but that's a big one, right? And coming up, be aware of that Real ID change. If you're in a state that's still working on that, doesn't have the Real ID on your license, that can be a big gotcha if you show up in 2023 to fly and they won't let you go because of the Real ID. The second part of the security fail is not knowing what TSA allows to go through the screening process. Be aware of the liquids. 3 ounces is all you can, 3 ounces of liquid is all that you can bring. And by the way, the bottle itself needs to be labeled as 3 ounces. If you have a 6-ounce bottle that's half full and only 3 ounces, that won't count. They will toss it. Water bottle, that's the one that got me. Be careful of the water bottle. Fortunately, I worked with a TSA agent that allowed me to just toss it and move on. And most of them, that's kind of where we are now. But I have seen other passengers get pulled aside and run into problems with, liquids. That's the number one that you run into. However, there is a full list of items that you cannot bring through. Another fail I had was a pocket knife that I had completely forgotten about. And I got pulled out of line, taken back to the counter. Fortunately, it was a business trip, and I say fortunately because my wife had dropped me off. I was able to get her to come back and take it, so I didn't get it confiscated. But I do know TSA at times will confiscate those. So pocket knives, fireworks, firearms. Know what's there above time. I'll put a link to the TSA website so you can take a look for yourself. But that's a big fail, not knowing what will go through. By the way, there are limitations on checked bags as well. While not necessarily part of the security screening process, it is a screening process, and in the checked bag area, TSA scans those bags as well. Be aware, there may be a case where you open your suitcase and you find a little card that says TSA checked this bag. So if they suspect anything, they will get into your luggage. But avoid the security fails. 3 ounces on your liquids when you're carrying through. Airport fail number 3, missing boarding. This one happened to me actually in San Francisco. I was taking public transit in San Francisco. I was on the BART system, and we had an extra long stop at one of the BART stations. And so when I got to the airport, I had pre-checked. I figured I would zip right through, and to be honest, it didn't take that long to get through security. And I got to the gate with 15 minutes to spare, or so I thought. What I learned is that several airlines now have a policy where they'll close the gate 20 minutes before departure time. And so once you get your boarding pass, verify what the boarding time is and make your airport schedule around that boarding time. Each airline's different. They have different policies. Some will, let you get on board right up to pretty close to departure, where others, it's 20, 30 minutes beforehand, and they're going to lock that door. And even if the airplane is sitting there, the jetway's still connected, once that interior door is closed, they're not going to reopen it. I was very fortunate in mine that I was able to book another flight. They didn't charge me a change fee. At that time, they were charging change fees. That may come back. I was able to do that, and mainly because I was still there before the flight had departed, but they did not let me on the flight, and they weren't going to. So be aware of your boarding time. Make sure that you're there in time to get on the plane. You might want to double check with the airline policy on when they shut the door, but don't cut it too close in the fact that right now there is no way they're opening that door once it's closed. So avoid fail number 3. Don't miss your boarding time. Airport fail number 4. Similar to missing your boarding time is be aware of gate changes. So let's say that you did check your flight before you left home and you have a virtual boarding pass and you see where your gate is. You get to the airport, you get through security, you know the gate, so you head over that way. Well, even in that time that it took you to go, from your home through security, the gate may have changed. Double check that. Check your departure board. See what gate it's still saying. Now, That's great. But as I mentioned in the previous one, also be aware of your boarding time. 10 to 15 minutes before your boarding time, check your gate again. So this has happened to us. My wife and I were traveling. We decided to go over to the snack bar to grab something to eat before our flight. And we went and got food. Apparently they made an announcement while we were in the food court, so we didn't hear them. We came back, weren't necessarily paying attention to what was going on, sat down, started eating. I noticed, or I knew what time the boarding was, and when that time got there and nobody was moving, I was a little suspicious, and so I happened to check the departure board and realized that our gate had changed. And so we gathered everything up and we headed to a different part of the terminal. And, we just made boarding the plane, but we realized that there were others who, didn't make it on the flight because the gate had changed and they didn't realize it. Don't do like us. Don't scramble last minute. Make sure you make that flight. Keep an eye on the gates. There are times when it's gate changed. I will tell you, I find this really common when there's going to be delays or when there are delays, that the gate change will happen due to the air traffic and the delay. There's times when they'll switch that around. It's not exclusively the case, but that is a common one. So just be aware. A few minutes before you know that you're supposed to be boarding, double check that gate assignment. Make sure it hasn't changed on you. And the number 5 fail is not talking to the airline as soon as there's a delay. So this has happened to us several times. And when I first started flying, I was a bit timid. And when there was a delay, I just took whatever information they gave me at face value. And so a lot of times the airlines, they'll make a best guess at how long they think the delay will be. It'll be an hour, it'll be 30 minutes, it'll be 2 hours, whatever the case may be. And so I would just take it at face value. I would wait. And what I learned is that sometimes those delays, they had to reroute a plane. And so it's in the air. It's going to be there soon, but it mid-flight. And so it's just going to take a little longer. In other cases, the flight or the airplane that you're waiting on is at a different airport and it's stuck. So let me tell you our story. We were trying to go to Vienna and we were going to Europe. And the flight that we had a connection in Chicago. There was a flight delay and I immediately went up to the counter to find out what was going on. And the airplane we were waiting on was in Chicago and there was a snowstorm moving in, and so it was delayed. I've been to Chicago before and I know that the airports there can get shut down due to snow conditions. I didn't care about Chicago. I wanted to get to Europe and I had a connection in London that I needed to get to. And so I immediately talked to the gate agent and told them, look, I need to get to my final destination. I don't care about Chicago. And they were able to find me actually a direct flight from my home airport to London, completely bypassing Chicago and getting there. When we landed in London, I found out 2 things that were very valuable pieces of information and why I'm passing this note along to you guys. Number 1 is that flight never did leave Chicago that day, and they ended up canceling that flight after several hours of delays. The snowstorm was too bad and O'Hare got snowed in. 2 is that because I had acted quickly, I was able to get on a different flight and go fairly quickly. After about 10 to 15 people had hit, the gate agent started calling the customer service. They started running out of places to put people. And a lot of folks that had originally been on that flight to Chicago ended up having to stay, at our home airport till the next day. So for us, making that really quick move, getting in touch with the gate agent as soon as possible, or calling customer service right away as soon as you know that there's going to be a delay. It gives you choices. It gives you the option to decide what you want to do. We've had other cases where we've seen a delay, we've talked to the agent, and again, they tell us, oh, it's a minor delay, the aircraft's in the air, it should just be delayed getting here. We waited the 30, 45 minutes, we were able to get on the flight and just be at our destination a little later. But take action, don't hesitate. Don't be a victim of fail number 5. When there is a delay, just check with the gate agent and see what's going on. I hope you enjoyed the video. Again, one of my goals with our channel is to share stories, and many times I'm going to share with you mistakes I've made. I've made some crazy ones, but hopefully it makes your experience so much better if you can learn from us. We hope you subscribe to our channel. Every week we put out content, and there will probably be more of these stories where I tell you about my fails. And at Storyline Travel, we believe every adventure is a story waiting to be told.